Let's see here. Let's move on to the next one. This is something that we don't really talk about that much, but I think it's good to, maybe sort of address the collecting aspect that a lot of us do explore, and maybe even introduce some others who don't explore this avenue. I want to talk about collecting art prints. And just really the way I want to approach this is beginner tips. Beginner tips that can really help people that haven't collected art prints before, or, even just like give general tips or guidance that can really help people in guiding their art print collection. Just talk about how you do it, just in general, how it works for you. I'm going to share an example of something that I bought recently. This is a website. This is a beginner tip that I can give you. So if you like video games, one website that I found called Cook and Becker is very, very good. They have very high level, like museum grade art prints. They come out really good. This is actually from Ghost of Tsushima, which is a game that I absolutely love. I just bought this recently. Here's a tip though. When you're buying art prints, you have to be very cognizant of what size you're buying, because an art print like this, 10 by 24, kind of hard to find a frame that size, right? It's not a typical size. If you buy an 18 by 24, very simple. You can go to Michael's and find that anytime. Lael knows this. So
Exactly.
you can go to Michael's, get the art print that you need, and get the frame you need, rather than you could frame your print. If you buy something a little bit more of a unique size like this, that's a beginner tip for me, a little bit harder. So another one I would give before I let you guys go is, I tend to get something like this that's a little more general and kind of beautiful looking for something like a living room or an office or something. If you have something in your collection room, you could have something a little more exciting like Darth Maul or Sauron or something cool like that, right? That's just how I do it. Everyone has their house differently, but something a little more general that maybe your partner can be okay with, or just the people who come in your house be a little bit different. But I'll go with you, Lael, on this one. Is there any art print, that you're particularly excited about? Like, what beginner tips would you give beginners for collecting art prints? Because I know there's people out there that have maybe thought about it before or haven't. What general strategies do you take?
Well, I mean, definitely you have to have a love for the piece. And on top of that, it's always a statement piece, whichever you get, and it can be unique depending on where you get it or who you get it from. Me, like I said, I have, certain artists who, I cling to when it comes to art pieces and the stuff that I actually get. I mean, I'm so, stupid excited. That's pretty much one of the reasons why, I go to cons. If I'm going to Comic-Con, it's not, just for panels. It's not basically just, I mean, again, if I want to get certain, books, CGC gradings, I can actually get it done, through my, my local comic store. They know how to get it done for me. But I mainly go to Artist Alley to collect prints. I have my favorites. Again, the excitement is that when you get a certain piece that is a statement piece that you have, pretty much in your collection, on your wall, when you visually actually walk down the steps, especially if somebody's coming down the steps and they see it, it's just like, yo, they get the same feeling that I got, you know what I mean? Because it is a statement piece. It is visually, captivating for me. And it speaks towards the characters that I love the most. You get to see them in such a dynamic way. You get to see them in a scene that you probably wouldn't see them, in anywhere else. And again, it's like, I love those unique statement pieces. My advice to anybody, and I'm pretty sure like it's not even advice that you have to give to anyone, because when they see it, they'll know when they have a connection to a piece, especially if they want it, they'll see it and be like, boom, that's what I want, because I have a connection to it. It's something that I see that I know once I get it on my wall, I can't take my eyes off it. It complements maybe a figure, or it just it complements the mood in the room, however it may be. It's one of your favorite characters. Again, Ren's, using him as, one of the greats out there right now, up and coming. Like he's doing some big things, killing it, in our game. My man Vince, he has like some really great statement pieces as well. But yeah, like, I mean, again, like it's important to have a connection to it. Collecting prints is not for everyone. But it is for the people that, really love and are captivated, by, the artistry, whether it's in video games, if it's in comic books, if you've actually seen, a print at your local comic shop, or, if you always wanted to see that character recaptured in a moment, art prints are definitely the way to go. I've been collecting art prints since I've been collecting comics. So yeah, love it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good ones out there, Leia. Like you
A
can go on
lot of
Sideshow,
them.
you can go on other places. Like I said, Video
Yeah.
Games Cook and Becker is really good. Like you have all
Yeah.
these great Marvel ones that pop up all the
Hmm.
time, bro. Like
Yep.
I mean, this Iron Man one that would be sick for any Iron Man collector. I mean,
Hmm.
that's incredible
Yeah.
right there. So,
Yeah. Definitely.
um, so what about you, Ben, for art prints? Would you have any like tips for beginners? I know with you, you tend to like stitch things a little bit better. So you're the artist yourself. But say you were getting into art prints, like how would you approach it?
Yeah, honestly, I would approach it in the same way that I collect, or I approach collecting just in general. I think
Mm,
knowing your budget is really important because there's definitely a really broad range of pricing when it comes to art, right? I mean, know kind of what you're willing to spend, what you're willing to put aside. I say also have an idea or an envisioning of what you want your collection space to look like, right? Because I don't know about you, there's been lots of figures, for example, in the past where I'm like, wow, I had a Green Ranger in my collection. I love the Green Ranger. I think he's cool, but it just,
Yeah.
no matter where I put him in the room, I just didn't like what it looked like with the rest of my space. I just had a hard time fitting it in. And art prints can be much the same way. You can go to a con and see a print and be like, that looks really cool, and buy it and get it home and go to put it on your wall and feel like it actually is detracting from your collector space because
mhm.
it's not necessarily fitting what you envision that space to be. So know your budget, know kind of the stream in which you want your space to look like, so you can kind of stick to as much of a lane as possible. You won't have any regrets that way, I think. And then ultimately, also like the collector community with figures, use trusted sources, right? There's people like Will who has a site that he goes to, and like you're the one you were just mentioning.
Yep.
If you like video games, I'd reach out to Will and find out. Like
Hmm.
what's a good spot. I've talked to CC 3PO or CC from Rogue One 6 before
Yeah.
about Star Wars prints. She knows a lot of stuff about prints.
Yeah.
Use the people who've been doing this for a while as a bit of a resource, as long as they're trusted, and that you feel like you can ask them a question, because most of them, if you're talking about stuff that they think is cool, they're gonna give you 5 minutes of their time, right? And most
Yeah.
people won't steer you the wrong way. And use the community as some support or some resource. But I definitely think, as I said, cultivating your collection is important. For me, I don't collect a lot of art prints because I do have limited wall space, but I have a weird hobby. So I've always liked comic books, and I always think comic book art is really, really cool. So I started cross stitching a few years ago, and so I'd find
Ooh.
covers that I really liked and figure out the design for
So
them, and then learn how to cross stitch them myself. And so all of the art prints that I have in my room now are my own creation, which is cool. And again, when it comes back to
that's
just
amazing.
being kind of my collector space, when people coming down into my collection room, like these are the things that mean the most to me, for sure.
That's
So yeah,
incredible,
it's cool.
bro.
It's I call it my granny hobby or my grandma hobby, for sure. But
You're like Renz,
yeah,
bro.
it's
You're an
cool.
artist yourself, man. That's exciting.
That's amazing, bro.
Renz is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Ren,
thanks guys.
you
Yeah,
guys
it's
both
that's
are.
cool.
You guys both are. So, Gina, what about you as far as art prints go? I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of tips would you give a beginner art print collector?
Yeah. So I mean, I got into art prints. I think same reason I think most collectors do, because they like that particular IP. Also, certain art prints you can get for $80, $90. You're like, oh, that's not too bad. So I sort of got into it. And so
BTS.
some tips I would have is, I guess maybe the first one is that I guess we all know that if certain art prints on Sideshow, they just have that automated signature from the artist. But
Yeah.
you can, which is kind of a bummer, but you can always go to the sort of conferences, and sometimes the artist is there. Like I was
Yeah.
able to get Art Germ's autograph on all my Sideshow prints that I got. So I got his actual autographs. So don't be afraid to sort of get the prints and then maybe wait for that particular artist. They're always showing up at different conventions, and you can actually get their actual autograph.
Hmm.
That's one thing. The second thing, and I'm sure most people have probably thought about this, but don't be afraid to sort of maybe take the extra leap and get custom framing.
Yeah.
If you have a print, it does make a big difference. And I'm sort of just preaching, I think, what most collectors have probably heard. But once you do it and take the leap and go, okay, fine, I'm going to spend the $150 or whatever it might cost, $200, and get the matting, get the frame. It does make a huge difference. And then third tip, which I sort of learned after sort of like switching out all of my artwork in my place slowly of getting, because I used to just have, my generic artwork framed up on my wall. And then I started, transitioning it out into actual art prints of the IPs, of the things that I actually liked. And one thing I learned very quickly was, you can think that if you put a collection of art prints and frames up on the wall, if they're from the same IP, from the same franchise, it's all going to match. That's not necessarily the case. Always, you have to sort of think of the color palette.
Yeah.
And you have to think of the style of the painting, or style of the art print. It could be sort of like a realism. It could be comic book, and you don't want to. And you can look at it and go, this doesn't look that. It looks okay, but it doesn't really. It's not hitting a 10 out of 10 that you expected. I mean, they're both, the same character. They're both framed nice. They got good framing, and why isn't it really clicking? And maybe it could be the color palette isn't working right. One is really vibrant, and the other one is like pastels, or one is really natural looking. So keep the color palettes, or keep the styles around the same. If they're all, if you're having them framed together, if you're having all these framed on the same wall, if you're kind of doing like a gallery wall, that's one thing I learned that. I have, like, for example, on one of my walls here, I have the 3 large, like art gem, like Wonder Woman prints.
Okay.
Right. But they're the same sort of, I mean, yes, you could say it's like Wonder Woman, but that's not why it all seems sort of, because, cohesive. Is the fact that the same style, the same color palette, and the same natural tones. So it just looks, they don't actually clash. They look seamlessly against the wall. It makes a huge difference. And then people sometimes, when I have people come over, and they don't really realize it's actually Wonder Woman. It just looks like a very expensive like painting thing, right? You're not really paying attention until they look closely and sees Wonder Woman. It's because all the colors match well. It just looks like a very intentional gallery wall, rather than just putting up posters like it, right? So that's, I would think really think about the color palette and the styles of the painting when you want to put them all together.
Yeah. And I'm with you on that one, Gina, for sure. And we got a super chat. So thank you so much from Pedro Lopez. Frame your art ASAP or store it in a portfolio. I'm with you, Pedro. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. That's another really good tip. And yeah, I'm with you, Gina, on the custom framing thing. The custom framing thing is really cool if you want your display to pop really nicely.
Yeah.
Not exactly an art print, but I got an autograph recently from Tom Hiddleston of Loki. So it's a picture, a still from the film, 16 by 20. He signed it, and it's a great signature. And I got it framed with museum glass and everything. It was very expensive. Like the signature itself was like maybe $325, something like that. But the framing was more than that. The framing was like $370 because it's a big photo, and I got it custom done. I got like museum glass on it because it's an autograph, and I wanted to preserve and over time, right? So with art prints, just depends on how much you pay for the print, how much you like it. But custom framing can be nice, but yes, keep in mind it will get pricey. The more custom you get, the more pricey it gets. We know this from collecting other things. So that's another tip. So
definitely,
if you can start out with, like Lael said, Artist Alley, or even the sideshow prints that tend to be 18 by 24, you can get one of those. You can get a frame from Michaels for $15 probably for that. You can start there. But like Gina said, that's a really good place to start, having cohesion and a consistent sort of theme and color palette for your pictures. If you're going to put them in the same area, that's kind of nice. But get what speaks to you ultimately. That's what I would say. But think about the big picture also.